Let's bring in John Casey, another young guy. He's running against Eric Burleson for U.S. Congress, and we had him on the show back in the radio days, way back when. I liked you then. I still like you. What's going on, brother? I know you're in the construction business. You're a military guy. You're up against a machine, baby, with Eric Burleson. How has the campaign worked for you? How has the Republican Party treated you? What are people talking about when you knock on doors? We're going to get to all of it. So let's start with just who you are, why you're running, and how the campaign has been.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again. I'm a blue collar worker here in Southwest Missouri. I was actually born in Springfield, and I graduated here in Republic, and then I went straight to the Marine Corps. I met my wife after being there, and then finished my contract. Came back to Missouri, and I've been here since. And I now have 4 boys, and that's really my driving factor to really why I'm doing all these things. Like all these other guys you've been talking to recently, it's really kind of inspiring to see that there's other voices out here that are kind of seeing what I'm seeing and saying what I'm saying. But in these different regions of Missouri that you're talking to, like Tyler Burks, I just think it's completely insane. Some of these things that we've seen on the on the federal level that we're trying to expose, a lot of the foreign influence that's been going on, and a lot of the complete non-traction we've had in Congress and in the House on really anything for the American people. There's been nothing domestically pushed forward. So I think there's a huge hunger for the American people for real change. And right now, I feel like it's really just in this last year has really just exposed, the GOP swamp machine, really what it is, and how much we really need to get in there and change that. So I really love seeing these grassroots folks in different areas coming up and really wanting to make a real difference. And being a blue collar worker, that's kind of really where my story starts. I believe we need to have serious immigration reform, and I feel like we've not actually seen that at all on the federal level. I believe all we've really seen is really just rhetoric. And even some of the rhetoric we've seen from the president has been completely upsetting to me as someone that believes we need serious immigration restrictions. He believes.
Before you go any further, because I'm with you.
Yeah.
What kind of response do you get when you say that out loud? Because I find that I was on the Trump campaign in 2016. And nobody has more street cred. I have friends in here that will tell you that. Charlie's in here. My buddy Bill is in here. They know all the way back 10 years ago, I was putting my neck on the line for Donald Trump, and I disagree with Iran war. I disagree with just dismissing the Epstein files. I disagree with passing Democrat budgets. I disagree with a lot of things. I disagree with the fact that he said he was going to cut the energy bills in half in his first 12 months and hold him accountable if he doesn't, and then they double for a lot of people. So I disagree with some of these things. But when I say that, people attack me. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Weren't you for him in 2016 when he said these things? If he's not doing them, why are you attacking me? I'm just bringing it to your attention. These things didn't happen. But man, people get through. It's like it's like he's their daddy or their brother at some level, and I don't really understand that connection. Are you getting the same kind of pushback if you see anything negative?
Yes, there's definitely this is kind of like a GOP stronghold, I believe, here in Southwest Missouri. Along a lot of I guess you would say, for lack of better words, a boomer vote. So a lot of people who are just heavily indoctrinated into whatever the GOP is pushing. And not only that, there's a good majority of people who were definitely really happy for the 2016 message, definitely believed he was an outsider, and have never come away from being convinced of that, despite what we've been seeing here recently, with the Iran war and a lot of these domestic issues that I believe we're failing on entirely when it comes to the House and the Senate and the presidency. When it comes to execution across the board, I feel like we're falling completely short and doing nothing but putting foreign interests or corporate interests first. And that's where I just feel completely stranded on the job site. I see all these things that are going on. We passed the big beautiful bill, and yet I call ICE and I'm on the phone for an hour, and the call drops, and it happens 2 different times. And it's like, okay, well, we apparently opened up all this funding for this, but it seems like it's so hard to even do normal reporting. So we're not having any real change over there on the job sites, and no real change when it comes to our legislation as well. Like we have.
John, is it primarily foreign workers on the job site?
Say what?
I said, is it primarily foreign workers on the job site? I have buddies in the construction business. It's almost all Mexican labor.
Yeah, it depends on where you actually land. If you're in the union areas, not so much because of the Francis Bacon Act. prevailing wage makes it to where there's not as many foreign-born workers. Usually, it's 100% American workers, which my opponent is actually trying to repeal as well. So I feel like that is completely the wrong thing to do right now, especially since he's not introducing anything when it comes to immigration restrictions. There's this bill currently in place that helps protect American workers that he's wanting to, totally take out because he thinks that basically, if we can stop paying these workers so much, we can save and do more of these projects that apparently we need to do. Well, I just think that's entirely the wrong place to be targeting, in my opinion.
Target blue collar.
I mean, there's things in place like ITIN that makes it to where, if you're an illegal immigrant, you can pay taxes, you can do a mortgage, you can open a bank account. I don't know why we have these huge things in place and we're not going after that, to incentivize illegal aliens to actually leave the country. There's no real progress on these huge things currently in place that are against the American people. Why aren't we seeing any real change when it comes to these domestic bills? Like the Immigration Act of 1990 that made temporary protective status, H-1Bs, and work visas as well. We're seeing flood the job sites as well. And then what also made the huge Somali population in Minnesota. So they talk about all the issues, they talk about all the side effects from the issues, but they don't talk about the root cause, how they happen, and how we can actually make that change. My opponents will even sometimes criticize H-1Bs, but will never introduce anything when it comes to reform on the Immigration Act of 1990 that actually made it. So, I just put your money where your mouth is. Actually, name the bills, go for the reform, and just make it happen. And I feel like we're not seeing that at all. Again, we're just sitting on our hands, and we're just holding a big stop sign until the Democrats get in, and then they're just going to flood us with their liberal agenda. So we just need to put the American people first, and definitely stop these foreign wars. And focus on these domestic issues that are huge.
I think we agree there. So I'm going to go through a list of questions here very quickly.
Gotcha.
Number one, what kind of response are you getting when you knock on door? You're a young guy. There's a, especially if you get into older people, and I'm talking about 65 and up, they always think that experience in government matters. I disagree with that completely, but I could be wrong. I've never served terms in government, but I think that fresh ideas, people that are strong-willed. I'll give you an example. All right, John. When I first got into the shoe business, I needed a 4-year college degree to get the position that I had. I lied on my resume. I just said that I had a 4-year degree. I put it on my resume. I got in and I worked myself up to president of the company without a college degree. So I think college degrees are not all they're made up to be, because I think common sense and intelligence the measure of your education does not measure your intelligence level. I just think those two things are separate, and I think they are combined nowadays. So when you say experience, I say, well, wait a minute, give me an intelligent person who's trying to do the right thing, who has influence and can create communities, create organizations, create a camaraderie amongst people. Always is a talent that people don't recognize it when it's happening. I look at somebody like you and I say, I'd like to have a young guy in there. I'd like to have a guy in there who may be inexperienced, but is trying to learn what's going on. Because if you don't go in there with a preconceived notion of how politics works, and you get in there and go, well, this is kind of dirty. They're telling me I need to do this to get this. And if you're a man of God and you're centered and you see that, I would want people to speak out against it and be brave. And I think young people are generally more brave. So as you get older, you got more to lose. When you're young, you have nearly as much to lose as when you're 60, right? You have more to lose. You got grandkids, you got this, you got a mortgage, you got investment, you got everything. And you're like, oh, I built this big nest egg, I don't want to lose it. When you're young, it's like, let's rock and roll. Let's get it on. So I like young people to be in politics because I think they're braver, and I think they're a little bit more green in government, which I think is good. How are people, when you knock on the doors and you knock on the door of a 65-year-old Fox News watcher, how do they respond to you when you're asking for their vote?
A lot of them, are really heavily indoctrinated into the GOP. If you're talking about the Fox News person, but on average, the voters that I'm talking to that are ready for change are the ones that I'm really after. I'm trying to convince the ones that are definitely heavily taking all the Fox News stuff in. They are definitely hard to talk to, especially when it comes to the Israel issue.
Right.
If we ever get into the foreign influence, usually I try to address health concerns. A lot of these older guys are definitely concerned about the poisoning of the American people. A lot of these people will still believe that as well. So that's where we can actually find a lot of common ground. Like atrazine in the water, chemtrails in the sky, stuff like that. I feel like there needs to be real investigation and real work to protect the American people, and especially when it comes to our food as well, like the Maha movement. A lot of older folks will definitely respond to that a lot better, and that's how we can really find a lot of middle ground. Especially if they're not really awake to a lot of these other issues that, say, the Israel issue, like you and I are. We definitely will not find a lot of a common ground on the Israel issue when it comes to a lot of older voters. So I really just try to appeal really to really the poisoning of the American people and how we can address that, go after that. And that's how we really find common ground, at least for the older guys and gals out there.
That's kind of what I figured you were going to say. I didn't know that, but that's kind of what I figured you were going to say. All right, couple issues that are very important to the show. We talk about them all the time. I would assume you're not real happy with the Iran war, that you would ask for a vote of Congress because that's what the Constitution requires. I don't think you can bomb and take out 50 leadership people and say it's not a war. If somebody comes in and bombs Washington, D.C. and kills 50 U.S. senators, I would assume that would be a war. The idea that we're not calling this a war to me is embarrassing to my intelligence. I really lose faith in people when they say, Rob, it's a conflict, it's not a war. I'm like, well, you're just a moron. I don't even know how to talk to you anymore. Do you see it the same way? Do you see that we should be having constitutional wars if we're going to commit military members overseas, if we're going to drop bombs on civilizations, if we're going to take out infrastructures, if we're going to do these type of things? Isn't it in the Constitution that the American people have to vote for that through the U.S. House of Representatives? And I don't even know why we're having this conversation. It's so bizarre to me. But do you see it that way?
I definitely see it that way. I feel like, especially when you're someone like me that is, more aware to, the foreign influence that's been taking place over the last couple of decades, the neoconservative movement, and really how it's completely hijacked the right and, the Zionism within the right. Yeah, I think definitely we need to have congressional support when it comes to wars, and this definitely is a war, and I am completely against it. Both of my opponents right now in the race were never in the military, have never deployed. I deployed to the Middle East in these same places that are getting bombed right now. And my incumbent, he went to the Middle East, but he went to Israel and prayed at the wall. I think there's a lot of foreign influence there, a lot of symbolism there that I don't agree with. And I believe when you do stuff like that, you pay you're basically paying fealty to that nation, especially when you look into that symbolism, what that means, and what they say the West is, and the New Rome, and everything like that. You know, all these politicians act like they're really informed and are really hardcore Christians, but don't really look into the symbolism and into the things that they're doing and the things that they're supporting as well. So no, I think this is a completely a war against American interests. We have lost regional hegemony in the area. Which has definitely put a lot of stress on the petrodollar, and it's put us in a position to where we were definitely worse off now than we ever were before. We had free trade, free travel. Issues with Iran, sure, but nothing like this. And this is a war initiated by Israel, and now Israel is not in the war at all, completely taking a step back, and is completely happy with us taking hits for him. And I just think this is completely un-American, and I hate to see it. I hate to see that a ground war is going to be pushed, because my brothers and sisters that I served alongside are going to be, right where I was, but experiencing a lot worse situations, and I know when I was over there, the rules of engagement were completely upside down. Back in 2019, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard was designated a terrorist organization. And that's when I was in convoys from Al-Assad Air Base to Al-Qaim. And, the rules of engagement were completely upside down there. And we're putting American service members in harm's way with no real defense. We were getting rules of engagement like, from the second lieutenant saying, when we're on this convoy, if you were to see the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, not to respond. And if we were to get shot at, not to respond unless we're getting pings on the vehicle. And only that vehicle is to respond and fire back. And I hope no one would actually take that advice and we would all engage. But, just hearing things like that are completely upside down. We're putting these Americans in harm's way with rules of engagement that totally put them at a disadvantage. So I just think it's complete betrayal to the American people. So I feel very strongly about it.
I know you do. And I interviewed a guy when I was on the radio station who lost all 4 of his limbs. So this guy with no arms and no legs. Then he tried to commit suicide, shot himself in the chest, and he survived it all. And when I was talking to him, this is a guy that loves his country, but I'm looking at this going, what did you get? What did you get? Your life has been altered forever, and what benefit did we get out of it? So you have to ask that question when you're talking about sending young people in their teens and 20s over to fight foreign wars, and they're illegal. Number one, and number two, what does the American citizen get out of it? Because if you can lie to us, which is my next question, the Smith Modernization Act, if you can lie to us through propaganda, and you've passed legislation that allows you to domestically propagandize the citizens, then how should the citizens see it? You're sending us to war without congressional approval. You are lying to us continually on television. You're selling us COVID. You're opening up our borders. You're indoctrinating our kids. At what point do the citizens go, wait a minute, we love America, but this isn't the America that we love. This is not what we fought for. I just think people need to be able to articulate that. When you're talking about we're talking about the Democrats and the Republicans, I look at very similar, and I'm sorry for this long-winded, but I want to give you my explanation before you.
Oh, you're good.
When I look at the Israel question, why does Islam have to be the enemy and Israel have to be our friend? Why can't they both be enemies to what we're fighting for? That we everything is okay. You have two bad things, Democrats and Republican Party. For me, I think they've both been derelict in recent years, and maybe for the last several decades, if I'm being honest. But if they're not getting us to where we want to be, then maybe they're not our buddies. Maybe we're getting false choices between Democrats and Republicans. Maybe we're getting false choices between Israel and Islam. Maybe we should just be looking out for America first, looking out for our Christian nation, and looking out for what is best for the citizens of this country, instead of trying to solve all the world's problems by creating war all over the place, which we all know is just a business. That's all it is. But I don't think young people should be dying on behalf of businesses, big global corporations, which, come on, that's what's happening here. And the Smith Modernization Act allows this to happen. Are you aware of the Smith Modernization Act? We talked about this before. Do you know what it is?
I don't know if you and me have talked about it, but I talked to Alex Jones about it just for a little bit. I definitely am for reform on that. Yeah, I'm against the propagandizing of the American people. I believe there was a reform in the Obama era that basically turned it upside down again, and it definitely needs current reform in the state it's at right now.
Right now, they've opened the door for domestic propaganda, so you can see whatever's going on around the world, just lie about it and then sell it domestically to your citizens, which seems a little bit crazy to me. When you were on Alex Jones, how did he treat you? Was he treat you? He's a funny character.
Oh, I love that guy. I think you are just the local version. Really, you're just a different taste. You're a different guy, but you're fully awake to a lot of these same things. He is definitely for, a modernization of it. And, I really appreciate what you do here locally, Robb. You're really getting a lot of these America First voices that are going to really want a real change for the American people, and will help turn the GOP completely upside down if we can, and make radical reform when it comes to all these issues domestically. So I really appreciate you doing that. And, I believe you're in the same fight as him. This is the info wars,
Yeah.
and you're just fighting it really on the Missouri level. And I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you young guys going after there and working, because look, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You're up against the machine and Eric Burleson, so that's going to be, that's a lot to bite off. But let's just say this: have you learned a ton about Missouri politics?
I am. This is exactly what I wanted. How do you get started? How do you get the ball rolling? I'm aggressive. I want to make something happen. So I've made a lot of huge connections, especially with the Missouri MRA and a lot of the smaller communities in the area. And I now have a position locked in as the Greene County Central Committee guy here for Southwest Republic. So I'm trying to make sure I can still make change on the lower level and keep attacking it. And this fight will never be over for me. And I'm glad to be in it. I'm glad to see that you're in it as well, Mr. Robb. And I appreciate you fighting.
I want you guys to stay front and center. Here's what I would recommend: stay in the political fight. You're learning a ton. There's going to be a time when you're 35 and then you're 45 and you'll have all this experience and you can actually make a difference in the world. I'm not saying you're not going to win tomorrow. I'm just saying, if you don't quit, because this is what happens. Some people, when they get punched in the face, or they lose, they crawl up in a ball and they go away. I don't sense that that's who you are. We got Ryan Hagedorn or next. I don't think that's who he is. Stay in the fight. We need young people to convince these generations that it is not what they were sold. It's just not. I'm one of them. I was right in that environment for almost my entire life, and I look at it now and go, man, what was I thinking? So I say stick with it as best you can. Couple more questions, and then I'll let you out of here.
Okay,
Surveillance state. How do you feel about data centers? How do you feel about flock cameras? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I want to repeal Trump's executive order, really open the floodgates to the AI situation we're in right now. I believe we need to have, AI reform and give the states, the rights to regulate AI again. So that's a huge push I want to make on that front. And I've been really calling it the AI police state. I mean, I stand against the AI police state, central digital currency, flock cameras as well. I want to have a national reform on flock cameras, take that completely away. The mass surveillance of the American people, the AI police state, I completely stand against. And I want incredible reform when it comes to that.
I agree 100%. And I think you should be talking at schools. That's probably where you get a younger audience is more apt to listen. And
For
nobody
sure.
wants to be followed throughout their life. Nobody wants to be surveilled. Nobody wants to have their plates tracked. Nobody wants warrantless searches. Nobody wants the Patriot Act. Nobody wants kill switches in their cars. Nobody wants any of this stuff.
Definitely.
And they keep passing it, which just blows my mind that people put up with it. Elections. Last thing I want to ask you is about elections. This is a big fight for us. I work for an organization called People's Lobby Missouri, and we work our asses off to make sure that people understand that if we don't have free, fair, and verifiable elections, then we're not a free people. You can call yourself free all you want. Everybody around the world thinks they're free. It doesn't matter what. China thinks they're free. When you go to all these people think they're free. You're not free if you're not in a constitutional republic, if you're not choosing your leaders. And I'm not saying that every election is being manipulated, but there are elections. According to Tommy Tuberville, he's a sitting senator. He said 6 people that he knows of right now didn't win their elections, and they're governing us. And I have to pay taxes to that apparatus. It's ridiculous. What do you think about elections? I think it should be hand counted paper ballots. I think we should have a one day to vote. I think that we should have an election holiday. I think we should do everything within our power as a society to make sure that our elections are run properly. How do you feel about elections?
I'm 100% the Rob Carter movement right there on the election reform. I love exactly what you said. Hand counting is the way. There's too much interference going on with that. I mean, we've heard, different administrations on the state levels and federal levels talking exactly about these issues, and saying there's hacking, and it's like, okay, well, let's do something about it. Let's do hand counting. Like, there's the solution. Why are we overcomplicating it? So yeah, I think Rob, you're hitting the nail on the head like always, and I love your insight on these things. Again, I think you're forming a great movement, and I appreciate you.
I want you to stay in contact with me. How do people find you if they want to vote for you? Listen, crazy things happen in this world. Trust me when I tell you, crazy things happen in this world.
So I got one more question for him.
Go ahead, Isaiah, but let him. How do people find you?
Yep.
And then Isaiah asks first, and then he can answer the question. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm on everything. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. VoteJohnCasey.com is my website. John Joseph Casey is my Facebook. Vote John Casey is my Facebook, and you can find me on Rumble as well. YouTube, X. You can find me at John J Casey. That's me. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, what's the question, brother?
Go ahead, Isaiah.
Yeah, so just being a military vet, I'm not sure if you're aware, but they are setting it up now at the federal level where the draft registration is going to be automatic instead of registering. Like I'm 34, but when I was between 18 to 26, they would mail me the selective service registration. I'd fill it out and then I'd send it back. And now they're going to make it to where you're automatically registered. And I know, your first trip's not going to be to Jerusalem to kiss the wall. I can tell that. And so with, people dying for Israel, essentially, that are our ages right now. How do you feel about that automatic draft being instituted?
Yeah, it's completely scary because, we're talking about that. And then side by side, we have the, NDAA of 2027, Section 219, that, if this ends up passing, will make it to where, intelligence, weaponry, and funding is all going through the Pentagon and no longer through Congress. So it's like, we're not going to be calling the shots anymore. And if Israel says go, we're going. So, I mean, I feel like we're already doing that. But that is putting, that's taking what breaks we had and just totally throwing them off the train and, kicking the throttle forward and breaking it and just saying, let's go. And I'm not for that at all.
Doesn't seem like a coincidence that Section 219 is being slipped in simultaneously while the draft is becoming automatic. That doesn't seem, it seems coordinated to me. That's all.
Yeah, it's all really coordinated, and everything we're seeing on the state level as well, like the anti-discrimination against Israel bill that I'm planning on making a citizen petition as well for, and, maybe challenge it as well in court. Civilly, but we'll see. That'll be good. That's an incredibly, Israel first law we have here that basically makes it to where, you have to sign that you will not boycott the state of Israel in order to work for the state of Missouri. And I think Rob was actually the one who pointed that out to me months ago.
Crazy. It's crazy. Okay, so one of our listeners says, "T
Important. I don't want to go off.
I
half
know.
box.
That's,
If
I was
someone has
surprised how
the summary. I'll go.
We're
You know?
We'll get you
Yeah.
hooked up with John Grady. He can explain it to you because this is a big issue for John. It's driving him crazy, and I want to make sure that you understand it and John can kind of fill you in on it because it's a big issue with him. All right, my friend, John Casey, everybody, enjoy you, man. I think you're doing a great job. 4 kids already, and you're how old? 27, 28?
28 now, as a couple days ago. Yes, sir. I'm praying for 2 more boys. They're all boys right now. That's my motivation. This is the world that we're going to be giving our sons and daughters. And the fight that we don't take forward today, we're just handing off to them. And I'm not ready to hand a crazy fight over to them without, getting a couple swings in myself.
Amen. John Casey, thank you for your service to this country, my friend. I think you're doing a great job. I know you've been working hard, so stay at it. Stay in touch with us.
Thank you, guys. You have a blessed day. Appreciate you.
Good luck tomorrow, my friend.
Yes, sir.